What is up, my YouTube family? Welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, then it's just welcome to my channel, not welcome back. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button because you will not be disappointed. You guys, first off, before I get started, I want to say thank you to everybody who sent me happy birthday messages. Thank you. Also to everybody who left me some kind and encouraging words in the last comment section and reached out on any social media platform. Some people sent emails. Thank you as well. I appreciate it so much. And for those who like my hair, I've had the hair color for a couple of weeks now, but I hadn't shown it on Instagram and I had not filmed, so I think it kind of slipped my mind. That was like me showing everybody, like nobody has seen it. I love it. It took a couple days to grow on me, girl. It really did. But I absolutely love it now, so thank you. I am obsessed with the hair color, and I really don't have anything else before we get started, so I'll just get right into today's video. On October 5th of 2010 in Beecher, Illinois, 45-year-old Rolando Alonso and his co-workers Joshua Garza and Matthew Burton are on a job site on Stony Island Avenue, reconstructing a burned down house. Josh and Matt are best friends who have worked for the construction company for a little while now, and Rolando is fairly new to the company. This is actually his second day on the job. All three of them are hardworking men, very happy for the opportunity to earn money for different reasons. Josh is actually saving money to purchase an engagement ring for his girlfriend. Now he plans to propose to her on her birthday that is coming up. And Rolando is a married, devoted father of 9 children between he and his wife. They have a blended family, and he has a lot of mouths to feed, okay? So he's especially excited about this new job opportunity, having such a large family to provide for. The 3 men are all occupied with work when a truck pulls up to the property, and a strange man hops out of the truck looking somewhat unkempt and quite disheveled, if you will. He approaches the group and asks if the house that they are working to rebuild is for sale. They answer him and engage in a short conversation that only lasts for a matter of a couple of minutes before this strange man gets back into his truck and drives away. Now, the entire conversation, Josh has this uneasy feeling about this guy, but something about him felt off. Now that he's gone, he tells his friend Matt about the uneasy feeling, but they pretty much just both brush it off now that the guy is gone anyway. I mean, at this point, it's like it's just water under the bridge, or so they think. Approximately 25 minutes later, the strange man returns to the job site, this time directing his line of questioning to Josh. He's asking them things like why they're tearing the house down, what are they going to do with a stack of plywood that is neatly stacked somewhere else on the property, and just random questions about different tasks that they are performing there and about what their plans are. Now, of course, Josh being uneasy in the beginning, he's still uneasy now, but he continues to answer the man's questions. And eventually the man stops questioning him, but he doesn't leave the property. He just proceeds to walk around the house and the supplies. Now, while he is walking around on the property, the 3 men that are working, they go on about their business. They continue their tasks. Matt goes back inside of the house to do something. Josh takes a wheelbarrow of supplies into the garage, leaving Rolando and this strange guy outside alone together. Without warning and seemingly unprovoked, the strange man pulls out a revolver and shoots Rolando. Josh and Matt, of course, hear this from the inside and both go running outside to see what was going on. The gunman fires a single shot toward Josh, hitting him in the head as well. Then turns towards Matt and fires a shot, but he misses. Matt instantly takes off running across the street to hide in this field of tall grass. He pulls out his cell phone and dials 911, but before he can finish explaining what's going on, his cell phone dies. Luckily, though, this strange man had given up his pursuit of finding Matt and had instead hopped in his truck and drove off. And Matt could see the man the entire time. He sat there in the grass watching him get back into his vehicle and flee the scene. And luckily, the dispatcher was able to get the location before the call dropped, so she is able to dispatch squad cars out to the house. When the paramedics arrive, both Rolando and Josh are miraculously still alive. They're both rushed to receive medical treatment, and Matt, who is unharmed, remains at the scene to give a statement to police. He gives the description of the suspect: an unshaven man wearing a green windbreaker, a light t-shirt, a black or dark green beanie, jeans, and white boots. He also tells authorities that the guy was driving a late model Ford pickup truck that he was pretty sure had Illinois tags. Initially believing this to most likely be a disgruntled ex-employee of the construction company, they reached out to the project manager to see if he had anyone in mind that he thought would be responsible for something like this. And their boss does not know anyone who would be upset, especially enough to target other employees. Furthermore, this was a fairly new project that an ex-employee would not have known about. And none of his other employees, past or present, fit the description given of the suspect. Investigators then canvassed the neighborhood to speak with the neighbors to see if anybody knew, heard, or saw anything. There was actually only one person home at the time who had heard the shots, but he did not even bother to look outside his window because he figured that it probably was someone hunting. They continue to process the crime scene and look for any type of evidence or clues, and meanwhile, their suspect is a mere 15 miles away. Meanwhile, in Lowell, Indiana, 64-year-old Keith Dahl, a farmer, is driving his pickup truck down a highway, headed to check on his bean field, when in the distance he sees a pickup truck driving toward him. He doesn't think anything of it. He pulls over to his bean field, puts his truck in park, but then this truck pulls up right next to his and parks as well. The driver of this truck does not hesitate to hop out of the car and approach Keith's window, striking up a conversation asking if it would be possible to keep bees on a field like this. Keith breathes a sigh of relief, thinking that, oh, it's just, a guy asking harmless questions. And he tells the man that he himself is actually interested in beekeeping and was definitely interested in beekeeping on this particular property in the near future. So the strange man writes his number down on a piece of paper, as well as his name, and hands it to Keith. Keith takes the piece of paper, turns to put it inside of the center console, and then this man pulls out a handgun, points it at Keith, and fires 3 shots. The shots are not fatal, but Keith does not want this man to know that. He pretends that they are by allowing his body to fall forward and appear slumped over the steering wheel, while he holds his breath to give the illusion that he is no longer breathing. The gunman then reaches into Keith's pockets, steals his wallet, which contained only $60 cash. He counts the money, fires a 4th shot at Keith before calmly walking back to his truck and driving away. What an asshole. When Keith hears that the truck is actually moving, like leaving the scene, he takes a breath, starts up his truck, and drives down the road just enough to where his phone will pick up a signal so he can call 911. Within minutes, an ambulance arrives and takes him to a nearby hospital where he is stabilized despite his 4 wounds. Meanwhile, back in Illinois, Rolando is not so lucky. He unfortunately has succumbed to his injuries, and Josh is still in stable condition. They get word of the incident that happened in Indiana, literally just 15 miles away from them. And so both teams of authorities try to determine definitively if the same person is responsible for both. They are successful in doing so once they find out that bullets recovered from both crime scenes are confirmed to have come from the same weapon. Detectives generate a composite sketch based on Matt's description of the assailant. Matt had described the guy that had attacked him and his co-workers as a heavy-set white male who appeared to be in his 40s and had been wearing a hat. The two of them agree on the physical description of the assailant, but when it comes down to the description of the vehicle itself, Matt had claimed that the attacker had driven a white pickup truck, whereas Keith, on the other hand, tells detectives that his attacker was driving a blue Chevy pickup truck that was either late 80s, early 90s. Both states issue an all-points bulletin for their assailant and tell the public that he is considered armed, dangerous, unpredictable, and also give the physical description that they had gotten from the two victims. They also released the composite sketch of the assailant, and less than 6 hours later, police pull over a 1992 blue Chevy pickup truck that matches the description given by Keith. The driver is 37-year-old Brian Dorian, a police officer from Linwood, Illinois, who is currently on disability leave after a shoulder injury he had sustained while on duty a year before. They only speak with him briefly before they just allow him to go on about his business, figuring he is probably not their guy. At this point, they decide to rely heavily on the vehicle registration list in order to get a list of their potential suspects. However, based on that, there are over 10,000 trucks registered with that description. But at this point, that's all they really have to work with. At this point, y'all, they just begin combing through the owners of all these 10,000 trucks, okay? Meanwhile, a second composite sketch hits the public days later, and this one has a lot more detail. And when a certain two officers see this new updated, fancy, detailed, high-definition sketch, they recognize the face and feel that it looks quite familiar. This sketch looks a lot like that officer that they had pulled over driving that 92 Chevy pickup truck, Brian Dorian. Brian Dorian is also, of course, on their list of potential suspects pulled from the vehicle registry because he, of course, owns a truck that fits the description. So with this, they decide to zero in on Brian Dorian as their main suspect. They set up surveillance outside of Brian's house, and in the meantime, they get with Matt to see if he could positively identify Brian Dorian as being the attacker via a photo. They show Matt 6 different driver's license photos, and he immediately points to Brian Dorian as the person who had attacked him and his friends. Without a doubt, he says that this is the guy that they had seen and spoken with. Now, Matt is also the one that originally stated that the color of the pickup truck was white, but because he was so sure of the physical appearance of Brian Dorian, they decide to take his word for it. They bring in Brian Dorian's girlfriend for questioning, and she tells authorities that on the morning of the attacks, Brian was out running errands. She also tells authorities that he has plans of leaving town the next day to visit some family. Now, all of this sounds rather strange to authorities. He was out running errands the morning that all of this happened. Convenient. They're just looking at that as he was not home. He was out and about. Was he out running errands, or was he out playing live action Call of Duty? Which one was it? And why now is he in such a rush to go visit his family over in Iowa? They decide that now is the time to go ahead and make their move if they're going to capture their guy before he completely disappears off the face of the earth. And in the wee hours of the morning, they go to his home and arrest him before he can get on the road. They also seize his truck as evidence. Now, he waives his right to an attorney right away because Brian said that he is innocent, and there is no way that they could prove that he is the one responsible for any of this. He insists that he is innocent and has nothing to worry about. He fully cooperates with the police, gives them his alibi, answers literally any and all questions that they have, and he tells them that at the time that all of this happened, he was actually at home on the internet researching something. They have Matt come back down to the police station, and for a second time, he positively identifies Brian Dorian as the assailant, even though there are some discrepancies between the description he gave police officers, like him being this disheveled, unkempt man, and Brian Dorian. He has much shorter hair than Matt had described the assailant having. He is quite a bit thinner than Matt had described, and in their opinion, he looks a lot younger than well into his 40s. Brian Dorian is charged with the killing of Rolando. even though he continues to maintain his innocence. Despite him being a police officer as well, the other investigators are not really moved by that, because this was not the first time that Brian had been on the hook for taking a life. Just 2 years prior, while off duty, Brian Dorian was speeding on a highway when his car struck another car, which results in the death of a 17-year-old high school senior. Now, Dorian claimed that he was speeding because he was headed to the repair shop and his check engine light began to flash. So he was trying to hurry up and get there, and that it was just an unfortunate accident. They had tried to charge Brian with reckless homicide, but instead he was charged with failure to reduce speed to avoid an accident. He never goes to jail. Instead, he is fined $500 and is sentenced to 12 months of court supervision. And a lot of people were upset about this. Granted, many people were upset with him for the accident that he had caused. Most people did not believe that this made it more believable that he would go out and intentionally attack people. But this was the narrative that the police department was really trying to push. No one who knew Brian could believe that he was in this kind of trouble. And what's weird is they don't even bother to question Keith about whether or not this is the guy that had attacked him, even though they knew that this person was the same person that had committed both crimes. And when Keith finds out that an arrest has been made, he looks at Brian Dorian and immediately tells authorities that this is not the man that had attacked me. This is not the right guy. In the midst of conducting their investigation, they have to look at the computer to see if his alibi checks out. Were you really at home researching whatever it was that you said you were researching at the time that these attacks happened, or not? And when they look into it, they find that he in fact is not lying. His alibi checks out 100%. Now, while the girlfriend said he was out, girl doing the grocery shopping and running errands, I have no idea. But he was not doing that either. Okay. With his alibi checking out, Brian Dorian is released from jail a week after he was arrested and is eliminated as a suspect. And with this, investigators go right back to the drawing board. By now, they've been able to narrow down the list of potential suspects, judging by the vehicle registration list, to just a couple of hundred. And because Keith had had a conversation with him about beekeeping, they dubbed him the honeybee killer. Now, aside from them narrowing down the list from 10K to a couple of hundred and them getting him a cute little nickname, they really haven't made any other progress in their investigation. Then on December 11th, nearly 2 months after the attacks, 19-year-old Karen Rhodes is inside of a tanning salon that she works at over in Orland Park, Illinois, when a man dressed in all black enters the tanning salon and begins to ask her about their prices. The man definitely comes off as a little bit strange, but she's doing her job and answering his questions when all of a sudden he pulls out a handgun, points it at her, and demands that she give him all of her money. Afterward, he pulls out a rope and demands that she assist him in tying her hands together, and then he proceeds to tie her hands and ankles to a chair. And while he is doing this, the front doors of the tanning salon open, and in walks 29-year-old Jason McDaniel, a customer who unknowingly has interrupted this robbery in progress. Now, Jason attempts to leave. Okay, he tries to backtrack and just walk right back up out of there. However, the gunman has seen him and demands that he stop dead in his tracks. Jason does exactly as he is instructed, which is to then get behind the counter with Karen. He attempts to reason with the gunman, telling him that he can give him more money if he would just leave, and that does not work. He then tells the gunman that he has a 16-month-old daughter at home, and again, the gunman is completely unfazed by Jason's words. He actually at this point tells him that he does not care about any of that. So rude, just rude. The room then gets quiet as the assailant continues tying them both up, but in doing so, he sets his gun on the counter for just a moment because he needed both of his hands for the rope. The rope got a little tangled. And Jason sees this as the opportunity to gain the upper hand. He lunges toward the assailant and elbows him in the face, completely knocking him off balance. He then goes for the gun, which was on the counter still, pointed toward the assailant, and according to him, it just went off, hitting him in the stomach. You ain't gotta lie, Jason. It's okay. We not mad at you for shooting Mr. Man. Meanwhile, while all of this commotion is going on, Kieran slid this chair over to the phone and has managed to dial 911. By the time the police arrived, which was not very long after the call was made, the assailant is laid out on the floor. When I say in pain, can barely move, he is in critical condition, not good shape at all. They transport him to a nearby hospital where he does not make it an hour. And while canvassing the crime scene, something really sticks out to authorities, like right away. There is a light blue 1990 Chevy Cheyenne with Illinois license plates. The vehicle is literally an exact match to the description given to authorities by Keith. They run the license plates and it is registered to 48-year-old Gary Amaya, who lives 90 miles south of the current location. They announced that they have positively identified the honeybee killer and that he is no longer in the land of the living, child, to give the public an update so everybody can stop being so afraid. And when they search his pickup truck, they find a woman's purse inside of the car, a bunch of rope, handcuffs, and a package of condoms. Now, the purse belongs to a woman from Chicago who tells officers that she was simply leaving a sandwich shop, okay, when Gary pops up out of nowhere, attempts to attack her, and she takes off. Now, she had managed to escape unharmed, but of course she had left her purse behind. And at this point, damn the purse, okay? This time when it is announced that they have captured their guy and Keith sees the photo, he confirms that, okay, yes, this time you got it right. This is the guy that I remember seeing that shot me. And now that they have identified who the attacker was by name, they needed to try to answer the question of why. What was the reason and the purpose behind this? Monetary gain seems to be the obvious reason, but of course they want to be sure. And in order to get a better sense of the why, they would have to dig a little bit deeper into the who. Gary Amaya had grown up in South Village, Illinois, and according to his father, he had developed this little interest in firearms at a very early age. He tells investigators of this one instance where, while in grade school, Gary had gotten his crummy little hands on a pellet gun and had actually shot out their TV. He made it to high school, but he hated school so much and he wasn't really performing well, so he drops out and does not finish. When his parents split, his mother remarries, and his mother and stepfather manage this hunting and fishing resort together. But then comes a day where the two of them decide that they want to uproot and move somewhere else. And Gary, needing a means to support himself, he fills in that role of helping run this resort. He really enjoys hunting and working at the resort because, you know, he has a little thing for the bang bangs, okay? This was right up his alley. He also develops a hobby of growing mushrooms. I don't know what kind of mushrooms, but I think it's them kind of mushrooms, if you know what I mean. He also develops an interest in beekeeping, and he has over a dozen beehives that he tends to on the regular. Between these three things, Gary is enjoying life. Like, all of his little passions are being nurtured, okay? People close to Gary and those working alongside him at the lodge notice that sometime after running the lodge, something changed within Gary just a little bit. He develops this Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde kind of dual personality. And although they thought it was quite strange, none of them felt like this was any cause for concern, and none of them foresaw him ever hurting anyone. He was always a very shy and introverted individual until he got to know you. Then he will become more comfortable, and you will get to witness his fun side, his sense of humor, and lively personality. For the most part, he is fun to be around, and he has no trouble making friends. Or at least this is who Gary was. A turning point comes in 2006 when he is forced to give up his position at the lodge and moved to where his parents were to help take care of his mother. She had unfortunately been diagnosed with cancer and she was doing pretty bad. She had become very ill. Within a year, she loses her battle to cancer. And this is the moment in which most of his friends and associates notice a huge shift in Gary's overall persona. Like, everything about him was different. He was not at all himself. Now, they can only speculate at this point that he becomes unhinged due to the loss of his mother and eventually becomes desperate for money. When police visit his home, they find his house in complete shambles. Okay, it is a mess. It's filthy. He had not paid his water bill, so he was forced to use a bucket for his waste, and it appeared that he had been using that bucket for quite some time. The house smelled horribly. Going through his belongings, they find receipts that show that he had been supporting himself up to a certain point by selling his beloved hunting guns. They also find a canvas bag filled with rope, a screwdriver, a knife, and more ammunition. I want to do a Kim Possible lip so bad. All leading them to believe that he had every intention on keeping this going for quite a while. They also speculate that he is responsible for a lot more robberies than they had initially known him to be responsible for. But with him now being gone, I mean, speculate is all that they really can do. As for Brian Dorian, he sues the police department for being wrongfully accused and detained for that week. And he is awarded $126,000 in a settlement that took place outside of court, which I'm really surprised he didn't get more. Like, he definitely could have and probably should have gotten a little bit more money than that. Also, I do want to say, while I was researching, I had a hard time finding pictures, and it was at the point where I was like, you know what, I'm gonna come back to this and try again to find photos, like more photos of the people involved. Child, if it wasn't that many pictures, it's because I could not find them. I'm so sorry about it. And that pretty much brings us to the conclusion of today's video. Please don't forget to like the video. Let me know your thoughts down below. Comment. Let me know what you think, how you feel. Subscribe to the channel if you have not. We are almost at 250K. That's like 250,000. Yep, it is, I'm sure. As always, I appreciate you so much for spending your time with me, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Peace. Damn, I got 12 text messages. I hope everybody all right. I'm just over here filming, girl, and somebody could be in trouble. I hope they dial 911. Yeah, one of my kids is snoring in the background. We just gonna pretend that they not, because y'all know the vibes at this point. Matt takes off running across the street to hide in a tall field of grass. A tall field of grass. A field of tall grass, girl. Investigators then canvass the neighborhood to speak with neighbors. Neighbors with a V. What? Is driving his hook. I left off the T. The driver of this second truck, Matt had described with a V. I be really switching out the V's and the V's. It's not okay. Matt had described the guy who had attacked They bring in Ryan. Who is that? Who is Ryan? They have Matt come down to the police site. Despite all of this, they move forward and okay.